around like 2 minutes ago, that a database is great because it makes lots of backups of your information right as it's coming in. So even if the server crashes, you're going to remember all your data. But even more so, even if some of your data gets corrupted, it's still pretty likely that it's going to be recovered because it's constantly making backups, and that's what database programs are so good at, is making sure that there's a high reliability for the data going into it. Because let's just be honest, if a database program did not have high reliability, nobody would use it. So that is one really big reason. And another huge reason as to why databases are great is because they're highly optimized for speed. So if the people who make these database programs, they put a ton of energy into making it so searches go through really quickly, they're really great at being efficient with how they store the data, and yeah, they're great at speed, and that's a huge reason why you guys would want to use it. It won't really matter for you guys because it's going to be such a small application, but if you had a huge application, it definitely would make a big impact. And a third reason is flexibility. And what that really matters is, let's just say there's going to be a hackathon coming up next week, and you guys let's just say you haven't started on your work, you're really kind of nervous that you're behind, so you decide we're going to make a server this hackathon, and you spend 7 hours and you kind of bash out this just triangle-looking server 1. And you put a lot of, you think it's going to be great, but then you realize next week that, you don't know, how much sleep you guys, were losing. This server was, really terribly written, and it completely needs to be redone. So you decide, you know what, we're just going to completely scrap it and make server 2. And it just is as easy, really. The image looks like that, and hooking it up is, quite, not that easy, but, it's really, really simple, because the database will now be separate from your server. So it's really easy just to hook up back to the same database. Your information will still be kept, and that's really big for large companies. If they need to make a change to their server, they need to make sure that they're not going to lose any data. So this is a really big reason why you want to separate your database from your server. And let's just say you guys make a startup from your 6148 project, and it becomes the next hit. You're probably going to need a new server, so you make server 3, which looks pretty cool. And lastly, scalability, which is databases are, as I said before, built to be efficient. And they're really, really good at storing a lot of information. And when your users' accounts goes from thousands to hundreds of thousands to millions to possibly even billions on Facebook, you want to make sure that the data that you're storing is being stored really efficiently, and because you won't have the space to store billions of users of data if it's not being efficient. So just a brief summary as to why databases are important. They are reliable, they're really great at performance, they're flexible, and they scale well. So now that we understand that databases, I get it, they're helpful, so I guess I'll put it in my application. But you might have a question, and you've heard maybe before what SQL is before, or what NoSQL is, so let's go over that, because those are two different ways that databases are structured, and we'll be going with one of them in this class for a multitude of reasons, but one of the big ones is that it's really easy to pick up, while the other is pretty complicated. So SQL databases are a kind of structure that, as it says there, enforces structure on your data. So what that means is the way that you store your data, everything is going to be very structured, and kind of what that allows you to do is perform a lot of complex operations on the data that you're storing really quickly. But the problem with that is, as I said before, it's really hard to pick up for a new user. And secondly, because data is becoming so big, SQL databases don't scale super well, so we are going to teach NoSQL databases, which is what MongoDB is. So NoSQL, as you can kind of guess, it has a no in front of it. It's no enforced structure, and it's pretty common in JavaScript frameworks like Node.js. Alright, so that covers it for me, explaining what a database is and what type of database we'll be covering today, which is going to be MongoDB. And Eric is going to go into exactly how you work with MongoDB and how you integrate it with your application. I hope you have fun. It's going to be pretty cool.